Good morning. So happy to have you all here worshiping together. Hello to everyone who's watching us online. I love a good tongue twister. I think my personal favorite tongue twister is how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Especially after the Geico commercial where the woodchuck's chucking wood into the pod. I just love that one. So I came up with a new tongue twister for you. It goes like this. Pastor preaches on party parables at a party. And that tongue twister was inspired by the text that we're going to read today. No, we are not going to do an entire sermon using tongue twisters. But today what we're going to do is something a little bit different. Jesus told 3 consecutive parables at a party about a party. And normally you just take one parable and you focus on it and you preach on it. Well, today I'm going to preach on 3 parables. And you're all going, oh boy. No, I promise, we'll still get out of here in an hour, maybe. But Jesus is at a party and he shares 3 parables. Now, why would we preach on all 3 parables? Because each parable builds off of each other and it's all in one setting. And so by looking at all 3, then we can take away the big point that Jesus wants us to take away today. So from Luke chapter 14, beginning at verse 1, it says, "One Sabbath, when Jesus went to eat in the house of a prominent Pharisee, he was being carefully watched." So here's the setting, right? Jesus is at a party. It's a Sabbath day. It's the party of a prominent Pharisee. And there's other Pharisees here at this party. And if you notice, we'll skip to verse 7. So what happens in those verses between verse 1 and verse 7 is that as they're at the party, they're keeping a close eye on Jesus. They're trying to catch him. And it's a Sabbath day. That's an important note. Because on the Sabbath day, you weren't supposed to do any work, but there at this party was somebody who had a health issue. He needed help. And the Pharisees were looking to see, would Jesus heal this person who needed his help on the Sabbath day? But Jesus, showing them that the fulfillment of the law, what does God want us to do, is to love God and love others. Here was this person who needed his help, and so Jesus would fulfill the law by healing him. Then, it's dinner time. And you can almost picture the scene, right? It's the house of this prominent Pharisee. There's all these Pharisees who've been watching Jesus, and now they're getting hungry. He healed them. And now the dinner bell rings, ding, 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 ding. And it's like all of these Pharisees are wrestling to get the best seat at the table. Like you could just picture it, right? Like everyone sits comfortably, but then somebody walks up and like, let me just get in right here, right? They're all trying to get the best, highest seat at the table. Then Jesus is watching them. When he noticed how the guests picked the places of honor at the table, he told them this parable. So here's the first parable. "When someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, for a person more distinguished than you may have been invited. If so, the host who invited both of you will come and say to you, 'Give this person your seat.' And then humiliated, you will have to take the least important place. But when you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he will say to you, 'Friend, move up to a better place.' Then you will be honored in the presence of all the other guests. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." That's the first parable. Then Jesus gets right into the second parable. "Then Jesus said to his host, 'When you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends, or your brothers or sisters, or your relatives, or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, and so you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous.'" That's the second parable. And then Jesus gets right into his third parable. There's a guy who's sitting at the table. Ah, yes, right? One of those sitting at the table with him heard this. He said to Jesus, blessed is the one who will eat at the feast of the kingdom of God." Jesus replied, "A certain man was preparing a great banquet and invited many guests. At the time of the banquet, he sent his servant to tell those who had been invited, 'Come, for everything is now ready.' But they all alike began to make excuses. The first said, I just bought a field. I have to go see it. Please excuse me. And then another said, I've just bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I'm on my way to try them out. Please excuse me. And still another said, I just got married, so I can't come. The servant came back and reported this to the master, and then the owner of the house became angry and ordered his servants, go out quickly to the streets and the alleys of the town and bring in the poor and the crippled and the blind and the lame. Sir, the servant said, what you have ordered is done, but there's still room. Then the master told his servant, go out to the roads and the countries, the lanes, and compel them to come in, so that my house may be full. I tell you, not one of those who are invited will get a taste of my banquet. And then it ends there. Like the next verse is, Jesus was there, and many people were gathered around him, and he spoke to them. Like that's the end of the parables at the party. And at first glance, you might read through this and be like, this really doesn't apply to me, so I guess we just move on. I mean, think about it. Taking your place at a wedding banquet is not really a thing today, right? Brides and grooms spend hours trying to figure out where to place everyone and where to sit everyone. And then they have a really fun way of showing you where to sit. So you show up to a wedding banquet, and what happens? You don't pick your seat, you get assigned your seat. So I guess that doesn't apply to us. And then that second parable, like, when you invite people over, don't invite your friends, your family, or people that you know, but instead invite poor, lame, blind strangers into your house. Like, when was the last time you didn't invite your friends and family over to your house? Instead, you invited random strangers over to your house. I've done that maybe once or twice. So does that mean that I'm sinning by having people over to my house that I know and that I like? I don't think so. It doesn't bother my conscience, so I guess that doesn't apply to me. And this last one about being invited, I mean, yeah, sometimes I turn down invitations when people invite me over, but I have other things going on. Like, I'm a Christian, I'm in church, I think I'm good. So, none of this applies to me, right? Jesus doesn't care about social etiquette. That's not the point of the party parables. Jesus is telling a parable. A parable is a very simple teaching. It's a simple, obvious truth, but the more that you chew on it, the more that you think about it, the more it reveals to us profound spiritual truths that apply to our lives. So let's do that for a little bit. Let's just stop and think about what is Jesus really trying to teach us with these parables. This first one. When you sit, take the lowest place so that you'll be honored. Don't take the highest place or else be humiliated. What is that about? It's kind of like being on an airplane. I used to travel a lot because I lived in Dallas growing up, but I went to school up in Wisconsin and Minnesota, so I'd fly. And like when I'm flying by myself, you'd sit down, but you're always scoping out because sometimes the airplane isn't full. And if you just wait and sit, sometimes there's some of those seats like on the emergency exit, or even better, in that business class section where it's only 2 chairs instead of 3 and they're comfier, and not all of them get full. And so you kind of wait for everyone to sit down, but then as it seems like, all right, I think they're about to close the door, you just kind of like, without asking, it's always easier to ask permission or forgiveness than permission when picking a spot on an airplane. But I would just get up and go, and I'd sit down, in those really comfy chairs. It was amazing. Except for that one time when that businessman showed up right before the doors to the airplane closed. And he walked over, and you're like trying not to make eye contact. And he goes, I think you have my seat. And the flight attendant comes over and goes, sir, please go back to your seat. And so then what do you have to do? Stand up, and all 37 rows who saw you get up and take that good seat, you have to turn around and face them and walk back to your seat, right? It's humiliating. It's the worst. But the opposite is true too. Like, my wife and I just celebrated our 10-year anniversary, so we decided to go on a destination trip to this amazing place called downtown Austin. And we got a hotel. It was so nice, but it's downtown Austin. These hotels are expensive, but we found a really sweet deal. And it's like, okay, we can afford like the cheapest room here at this hotel. So we showed up this hotel, and they being extremely hospitable, and they said, which room are you in? Oh, we're in the, okay, very good. And what brings you here to the hotel? And we said, oh, we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary. They said, oh, really? Well, we're just going to upgrade you to a suite and with a balcony with a view. And it was like, whoa, wow, that was amazing. That's the same thing that Jesus is teaching here. When you think of yourself more highly than you really are, what that produces when you get exposed is double the humility. And when you think of yourselves truly humbly, and someone says, no, they honor you, by somebody honoring you, that's double the honor. And so that's the truth that Jesus is telling us. When we humble ourselves, God gives us double the honor. When we puff ourselves up, you will suffer double the humility. That's the truth that Jesus is trying to get us to grasp. What about that second parable? Remember the second parable? If you're hosting, don't invite your friends, family, or the people that you know, but instead invite people you don't know. People off the street. Does that mean we should all go home and pick up homeless people off the street and bring them over for dinner? Maybe. But that's not the point. You're not sinning if you don't do that. What he's saying is this extreme example. If you would go and just bring random people off the street into your home and give them a wonderful dinner, and you host them and give them a wonderful time, open up your home to them, why would you be doing that? The only reason why you could possibly doing that is out of genuine love for them, not looking for anything in return. So whenever you do something good for God, whether that's hosting a party and being very hospitable, or by being kind to your neighbor, or by, helping someone with their groceries, whatever you do, whatever good you do, do it not to get something in return, but do it simply out of glory for God. That's the truth that Jesus wants us to grasp. What about this last one? You get invited to a banquet, and what happens? People say, oh, no, I can't make it. Why? Because there are times when you have to turn down invitations, right? Because of what is a priority. If somebody invites me over and says, hey, Pastor, the Cowboys are playing opening night, Thursday night. You should come over, bring your family over. We'll have all the food, all the drinks. It's going to be a great time. We'll have the TV game up on the TV. It's going to be awesome. I will turn down that invitation. Why? Because I prioritize my happiness over a football game. Because it's a Thursday night game at 7 o'clock. And you're telling me to invite all my family over? I have 3 small children, and it's a school night. They need sleep, because if they don't get sleep, then they're going to be terrible the next day. Oh, no, just let them stay up. It'll be fine. I prioritize my kids sleeping over going to a party and watching a football game. Whatever is your priority, that's the invitation you're going to accept. But if someone says, hey, Pastor, all expenses paid trip to Fiji for a week. Well, sorry, Mr. Walker, Bobby's not going to be able to be in school this week. And yes, it's going to be really difficult to travel across the world with 3 kids, but, oh man, that is a priority. Whatever is your priority, that is the thing that you accept as the invitation. What's the point Jesus is making? God is inviting you into his banquet, into a relationship with him. There is nothing else that should be a higher priority in your life. These are the meanings of the party parables at a party. Now think about the Pharisees, right? Put yourself in that room, in the room of the prominent Pharisee with all the Pharisees around. Did you notice what happened? They were invited to a banquet, and they came. There is a poor person who needed help. But rather than wanting to help them and get nothing in return, instead, they were using this poor person for their own advantage and for their own gain to try to get Jesus. And when it came time for the meal, They didn't humble themselves, but instead they proudly tried to take the highest position. And so Jesus told a parable about taking the lower position, and then he told a parable about showing love and not wanting anything in return, and then he told them a parable about rejecting the invitation to the banquet of God. What was Jesus trying to tell these Pharisees? You are proud, you are loving the wrong way, and be careful because you are outside of the kingdom of God. Yeah, Jesus doesn't care about social etiquette. He's trying to get them to wake up. So how about you? Do you feel like you have something to offer to God? You get frustrated at him because of the situation you're in, thinking, I don't deserve this. I deserve better. You think you're better than somebody else? Oh, at least I'm not as bad as, look at how good I am. Careful, because you'll be humiliated. When you do good for others, are you hoping to get recognized? Get notoriety? Are you helping others just so you can feel good about yourself? Are you frustrated that while you're helping other people or serving God, you're frustrated because nobody else is helping you? Okay, well now you're loving trying to get something in return. What about the priorities in your life? Is work time or family time more important than Jesus' time? Maybe. Is social media, sports, or substance taking priority over Jesus? Are you more concerned about your own personal comfort, your own personal stability, your own personal security, rather than prioritizing Jesus? We cannot listen to these party parables at a party and think, man, those Pharisees are so bad. No, the only conclusion that each and every single one of us can come to is that I am proud, that I'm not always loving, and God forbid, am I outside of the banquet of God? God, have mercy on me, a sinner. But do you notice Jesus here at this party? Like, just think. Imagine you are one of those Pharisees sitting at the table, and Jesus is there. To be sitting across the table and to be looking into the eyes of Jesus is to be looking into the eyes of the one who sees all things. To hear the words of Jesus spoken in your ears are to hear the very words through which light was created. To be in the presence of Jesus is to be in the presence of the one who is everywhere. Like, there in that room, at that party of that Pharisee, is God, who humbled himself to become truly human. What God would do that and lower himself like that? And then to be in a room where he knows everyone's thoughts, to be in a room full of enemies who want nothing but the worst for him, and yet he still willingly goes into that room to try to help them. And if you know the rest of the story, those Pharisees are the one who did what? Took him before Pilate and had him crucified? Like, this is God who humbled himself to all of this, even though he is the one who deserves all glory. And you think about the love that he showed. Like, why would Jesus go through all of this? Why would Jesus humble himself? Why would Jesus be willing to suffer death? It's not to get something back in return. No, why did Jesus do all of that? It was for you. He did it simply because he loves you. And then you think about Jesus, like, one of my favorite parts about that parable is how the master is compelled. He's like, just go out and bring them in. There's still room, get more in. Isn't that the attitude of Jesus? That he just wants more and more and more people to come to him and to come into his kingdom. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about your past. He doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care what you do. He wants you in his banquet, and he gave everything up so that you could be a part of it. Did you notice who they invited to the banquet at the end? right? The friends who said, well, it's not a priority for me, so I don't care. Okay, they're not going to get a taste of the banquet. So who does the master go out and get? The master goes out and gets the poor, the blind, and the lame. That is awesome. The master goes out and brings into his banquet the poor who have absolutely nothing that they can pay back in return. He brings in people who can't bring a party gift. And the master says, that's who I want. The master goes out and he brings in the blind. You know, the blind, who you could say, hey, come over to my house. It's right over there. The master brings into the house those who could never possibly find a way or decide to get into the banquet. He brings in the lame. He brings in those who could be invited and want to go but have no way of getting there because they can't walk. And yet the master wants them into his banquet. So he sends his servants out and the master brings them into his banquet. The point of these party parables at a party is this. I am nothing. Jesus gave up everything so that I could have everything. May this truth from these party parables change the way you see yourself, the way that Jesus wants you to see yourself. May these truths change the way that you see others, the way that Jesus wants you to see others, to serve them without getting anything in return. And may these truths change the way that you see your relationship with Jesus and getting into heaven, making that the number one most important priority in your life. Amen.